IIT Madras Research Park, nurturing innovation and industry-academia collaboration. A story of vision, grit, groundbreaking success in the field of S&T. We're talking about industry-academia collaborations here. And Fast India constantly has been endeavoring to create knowledge outputs that will accelerate India's ascent to the top 3 S&T nation. One of the lessons of the past 50 years is that higher education institutions produce disruptive discoveries. And industry, on the other hand, is the one that converts the research into actual wealth, right, into commercialization. So it's really important that industry academia come together to create something that will really drive the nation forward. They really have the potential to drive innovation, economic growth, and solutions for socio-economic challenges. However, it's not very easy to create these collaborations. And even if you do end up creating them, it's very difficult to sort of continue with them. There are multiple challenges, different incentives for both industry as well as academia. So it's neither like a straightforward process, nor is it very organic in nature. So one institution that has really managed to do well in this field is the IIT Madras Research Park. It is India's first university-based research park, and it really does well in terms of the Saraswati-Lakshmi divide. So they keep calling it the Saraswati-Lakshmi divide because Saraswati is, of course, academia, the knowledge it produces, and Lakshmi is the wealth that industry is able to generate out of that knowledge. So, you know, it doesn't have to be just Saraswati or just Lakshmi. It could be a collaboration between the two of them, and that could really lead to a prosperous nation. So as you can see here, we have the IIT Madras Research Park, and we have some figures in terms of how well it has been doing. The ecosystem consists of, if you go to IIT Madras Research Park, you will find that it's a very bustling ecosystem. You have your incubators in one space, you have the research park office there, you have a lot of different corporate offices that have their own R&D centers there. You have your startups as well, and then you have these centers of excellence that work at the cusp of the latest technology. And they have a total of around 250 R&D companies, sorry, my bad. 900 plus joint projects have happened till date, where industry or the corporates there have worked with professors and students at IIT Madras. They've been able to invest around 680 crore in terms of R&D. And if you look at the incubation cell, which is situated right in the research part, they have a startup survival rate of 80%, which is absolutely brilliant because usually the rate is somewhere around 10 to 20%. But to be able to say that the startups have survived, 80% of the startups end up surviving over the 3 years that they're there, that's a very, very big deal that they have been able to somehow crack in the time that they've been here. So the whole idea of this case study was that how do we really understand what is it that IIT Madras Research Park did differently, and we wanted to really understand its evolution over time, their actual impact in the ecosystem, and the approach that they've used to be able to generate such an outcome. So the case study that we're about to launch, it's not just a story of success. We're not just talking about how well they've been doing and, you know, this has happened, all of that, but it's really a blueprint for replication. So anybody who looks at the case study hopefully will be able to understand how to do that themselves. Any institution that looks at it or anybody who wants to even understand how the research part ecosystem works, this is for them. It's not exactly a rule book. We did not want to say that this is how every institution should function, but the idea is that you understand the finer nuances of a success story. What is it that is setting them apart? What are the principles? What is the mindset? What are some of the frameworks that they use so that anybody can use these things and sort of replicate that for themselves? It is presented as a narrative, and we've used more of storytelling techniques so that readers do not get disinterested, or it's just some sort of report that you're reading. And one very important thing that we did was to get very diverse stakeholders to talk about the research part. So it was not just the management. Of course, the management is important because they know how they did it from day zero. But we also taught to the industry R&D center heads. We taught to startups there. We taught to a lot of faculty. As you can see, we have names of a few of them that we interviewed at the IIT Madras Research Park. We spent some good time there getting an idea of how things work. And of course, we have Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala here, who was there from the beginning of the research part. And in terms of the industry R&D heads, we have Saint Gobain, Renault, Nissan, and we have the R&D head here today as well with us, Toyota, Tata Steel. And in terms of startups, we had Agni Tool, Unifor, Stellabs, Doovie, and Desi Through. So there are a lot of data points, there are quotes and very real life examples that really portray the parts, very unique model, and more importantly, the mindset that people had, because people was one of the biggest factors that came out of this whole study, that it is the people that will eventually make the difference in any sort of institution. So we've tried to capture that as well. I will now move to the key learnings that we had over the sort of duration of the case study that we did. And there are like 4 buckets that we can, there are of course a lot of things to learn, but there are 4 buckets that you could divide the learnings into. Starting from the operational mindset, as I keep mentioning, it's the mindset that made all the difference. And the first part, so even before actually I moved to the operational mindset, the sort of tagline that IIT Madras Research Park has, bringing unlike minds together. And I think that's very important because that's the whole base of the research part, because it is one place you have everything that's happening, right? You don't have to go far away. You have your startups, you have your industry, you have your academia. So it's very easy for these 3 diverse stakeholders to work with each other. And one thing that they prominently talk about is youth, the youth of the country, because they are the people who can take the risk. They are the people who are, sort of not afraid to fail. So they can really create that innovation. And once you have that support system to help this youth prosper, you can then create great outcomes and disruptive discoveries, as they talk about. So that's the base at which IIT Madras Research Park sort of starts. And if we move to the operational mindset, they are very clear that you have to become one with the ecosystem, which basically means that even though they are sort of an offspring of an education institution, they're not really one. They have to shed the perception of being safe, slow, bureaucratic, because at the end of the day, they are talking with industry, they're talking with startups. So you have to pick up their language, their word style. And one example of this was that they actually that meant a lot of long working hours initially, and a 6-day work week for a team, which was very different for somebody who's coming from a sort of government academic institution, because typically it's a 5-day work week. But they were very clear that if everybody else around us is doing 6 days, we have to also do 6 days. So small things like that made a lot of difference in terms of their image and perception. And there has always been a lot of focus in terms of sustainability and financial independence of the research part, which means that they were not willing to take any sort of grants to run this research part. They only had some seed money that came in initially, but after that it was all about how do we generate our own revenue and how do we sustain ourselves. And we're not going to run on grants because easy money hurts, right? We don't want money to just keep flowing in, and then you don't really work to try and ensure that things are in place, because you have all this money that can keep coming in at any point of time. So that was something I was very prioritized. And so again, the whole idea that you operate like a startup itself, you're not somebody different. And if we move to the joint R&D part of it, which is basically how did they manage to do all these collaborations with industry academia. So they have a credit points based system at the research part, which means that if any company has their R&D office there, they have to earn at least 100 to 150 credits every year based on the space that they occupy. So for every 1,000 square feet of space that you have to earn 100 to 150 credit points. And you earn these 100 to 150 credit points by actually working with IIT Madras, which means that if I have professors who are advisors, so I might get around, let's say, 100 credit points for that. If I have students who are interning with me as a company, on some research project, then there's a certain number of credit points allocated to it. So you have a lot of like long list of things that you could possibly do as a company on working with IIT Madras, and you would get these credit points. So it became sort of a mandate for you to actually collaborate, right? There was a sort of stick approach that came in here, and you had to collaborate with IIT Madras on something or the other. The other thing is the learning and growth opportunities, which is the carrot approach here, which is basically you had some sort of variable salary components for senior personnel in the industries. You had opportunity to participate as an adjunct faculty at IIT Madras. So if I was a senior personnel at any sort of corporate, I could become a faculty at IIT Madras, and also the staff at the company could do some sort of part-time master's or PhD degree at the institute. So that gives an incentive for them to also stay here, as well as the space that they occupy is somewhat subsidized compared to other sort of tech parts and things like that. Then the third thing is the change in the orientation of faculty, which of course meant that you had to change the mindset of faculty over the years, and they were able to do it with IP cells, some sort of incubation policy, and integration of these joint industry-academia collaboration into the promotions of the faculty. So that has now led to around 117 companies at the research part that have IIT Madras faculty as their founders or minority shareholders. So that has really resulted into some sort of outcome for them as well. Then the third bucket would be leadership and governance, which makes a huge, huge difference, because eventually, again, it's the people who are leading the institution. And all of them had a very strong technological understanding, which most faculty does. But at the same time, they had a very strong business acumen. They knew how to run a business. And at the end of the day, the research part itself was a business for them. It was not just some sort of project that they were doing. So that made a huge difference in terms of how they operate with everything. And they were very clear that they needed to be independent from the starting. So it was IIT Madras or the government. They were very clear that the governance had to be very independent and did not interfere with the day-to-day functioning of the research part. The fourth bucket here is the incubation cell that we talked about, and the startups that came out of it. From day one, there's a very strong emphasis on commercialization, because a lot of times what ends up happening with, so IIT Madras Incubation Cell exclusively incubates only deep tech startups. So something that they started realizing was that when startups are very R&D heavy, they focus on the research part of it and maybe not so much on the business or commercialization part of it. But they were very clear that there has to be a very strong emphasis on commercialization, and at the end of the day, you're a business. So you have to ensure that whatever tech you're using, that has to convert into some sort of commercialization, and you have to set up a business with that. So that emphasis was very important, and that has sort of now led to almost we have like 400 incubated companies at the incubation cell, and the valuation is of 50,000 crore, which is approximately $6 billion. And of course, we talked about the 80% survival rate of most of the startups there, which is very, very impressive. And every individually is incubatee is very individually nurtured at the incubation cell. And the mantra for them is, of course, easy money hurts for the startups itself. So they have to sort of earn their money, and everything that they do has to have a purpose to it. And there's also the last point, which is there's a very strong integration of the research part in incubation cell. So in most of the institution, what ends up happening is that the incubation cell is just like one separate entity altogether, and if any sort of research is happening, that probably they don't talk to each other, right? It's some sort of department or some separate building in the institution, but that was not the case with the research part. Even though they're two separate legal entities with very different purposes, they still like very strongly work with each other, and there are a lot of programs that keep running across the research part as well as the incubation cell. So we're very grateful to all the stakeholders, the faculty, the industry partners, and startups at IIT Madras who made this possible and who shared all of their experiences for the study. Special thanks to IIT Madras for their unwavering support, and to all the industry leaders who believed in the vision of the park. We really hope that this case study will inspire more institutions to adopt similar models and drive innovation at scale. May I now take this opportunity to invite our esteemed guest, Professor K. Vijay Raghavan, former Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, Dr. Kavita Sairam, founder and CEO at FIB SOL Life Technologies, incubated at the IIT Madras Incubation Cell, Dr. Subramani Ailur, Vice President R&D, Renault Nissan Technology and Business Center, India at the IIT Madras Research Park, and Professor Ashish Garg, Professor at the Department of Sustainable Energy Engineering at IIT Kanpur, to please join us on stage and unveil and launch the case study on IIT Madras Research Park.
Is this also available online? It is also available online for those of you.
We also have a digital copy on the Fast India website, so you can check that out. We will now begin with our next event, which is a panel discussion on universities converting research into products of future. This discussion will revolve around bridging the gap between academia and industry, strategies to create more robust university-industry partnerships, how universities can create innovation ecosystem through incubators and accelerators, encouraging entrepreneurship among students and faculty, and lessons Indian universities can learn from global counterparts along with creating sustainable and socially impactful innovations. Over to the panelist and the moderator. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Before we start, may I request our fellow panelists to introduce themselves. I'll start with you, Kavita, and then I'll introduce myself again.
Good morning, everybody. And I thank FAST for this opportunity to share my views here. And good morning to all the panel members and Honorable Professor Vijay Raghavan. And good morning to all of you, the audience here. Myself, I'm Dr. Kavita Sairam. I have a PhD in biotechnology from IIT Madras and a master's in medical biochemistry from JIPMA. After my PhD, I started this venture, FIBSOL Life Technologies, where we develop lightweight carriers for today agricultural inputs. Yeah, so that is me. Thank you.
Thank you, and once again, very good morning, all of you. And whenever I come back to the campus like this, I feel very energetic. Right? It's beautiful to be in the campus back after many years. Myself, Ailur Subramani. I represent Renault Nissan Technology and Business Center based out of Chennai. Basically, I'm a PhD or Doctor of Engineering in Material Sciences from Tokyo Institute of Technology, and I was working in Japan. Then I joined Nissan Motors, and I moved back to India like 17 years before. So my specialization is materials, but now I head the automotive engineering, and probably you can imagine I kind of touch all the technology, starting from, of course, the materials to electronics, electrical systems, softwares, and not to miss out the AI and Gen AI and big data. So everything. I manage a diverse team today to develop technology that would be pretty much useful for the, of course, making cars, but more than that, we are also very focused on sustainable development and see how, as a car company, we can contribute to the carbon neutral goals, obviously of our company, but also the, the global, directions in terms of sustainable development. So very pleased to be here, and thanks again for FAST having me here.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. My name is Ashish Garg. I am a professor at IIT Kanpur. I currently chair the Department of Sustainable Energy Engineering and Keshwan Center for Energy Policy and Climate Solutions at IIT Kanpur. So this is a relatively new department and probably India's first department in sustainable energy, which has master's and PhD programs in clean energy technologies, policy and regulations. So I think the future of sustainability, one of the important parts is clean energy. And given the nature of this crowd, which is very young, many of you may be interested in making careers in sustainable energy, and I think institutions like IIT Kanpur, IIT Madras, IIT Bombay, and many other institutions in India can provide those options for you. I myself am a material scientist. I work in the area of solar photovoltaics, energy harvesting, and other materials for energy conversion. So look forward to taking part in the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kavita, Subramani, Ashish. It's really terrific to be here. I'm Vijay Raghavan. I'm a developmental biologist, so very far removed from converting knowledge to wealth. Much of the kind of work I do sucks in wealth, generates knowledge, but doesn't generate wealth necessarily from it. But that has its place too. I used to be principal scientific advisor to the government of India, and then before that, secretary in the Department of Biotechnology. And in those roles, we dealt a lot with trying to stimulate industry-academia interactions and see how we can stimulate the growth of startups, industry partnerships, and the economy through that. One of the principal challenges in that is simply stated. One hand of the government wants to stimulate industry-academia interactions and have that grow. The other hand wants to ensure that due processes are followed so rigorously that the safest aeroplane is one which doesn't take off, right? So this is the big conundrum which we have in the public space. Now, it's easy to blame the government saying that you guys are putting in rules and regulations and so on. But actually, if you dig a little bit deeper, it's us who put in these rules and regulations in two ways. One, we take egregious examples of violations of rules and traditions and regulations and want to put in rules which cover everything. And that's because of citizens' demands. We get incensed by some egregious misuse and want to correct that. The other is actually a more readily correctable one within our institutions. And within our institutions, there sometimes is a disdain for industry and the creation of wealth. And this is almost as if that academia is pure and that purity is preserved by not being successful in the outside world. Now, there is some value in pure academic pursuits, there's huge value, but that doesn't mean that it's contradictory to the creation of wealth. And now we have certain examples. The IIT Madras Research Park is one. There are a few others where this combination has worked out really well. And we need to ask why that has happened. Now, there's another tendency in government is when we see something successful happening, we want to replicate that and scale that. So we think that the kind of building which is there in the IIT Madras Research Park, its proximity to an engineering institution, the numbers of cafeteria and open spaces which are there, that all these are sufficient to make a research park. And Subramani, for example, was there from the earlier stages, and he will tell you that it's not that which makes the brick and mortar doesn't make the park, it's the culture. And the culture is set up by the people establishing it, bootstrapping back and forth, and getting things done. There's one more point about the IIT Madras Research Park which you should keep in mind, that it was developed and grew in some ways. One aspect of it had a close partnership and support from the directors of IIT Madras at that time, Professor Anant and Professor Bhaskar Ramurthy, but it was done independent of IIT Madras by people such as Ashok Jhunjhunwala, working with these people to take a daring move to work independently with the Tamil Nadu government, get that land, raise money from banks. No money was raised from Government of India funds, and this was an extremely daring move because if they couldn't pay this back, they would all be in very serious trouble. And there were very serious concerns at the early stage that they wouldn't be able to pay this back. But they've done really well, and nothing succeeds like success, so they've gone on from that. So let me start now by, first of all, requesting Ashish to give a different perspective about what he is doing at Kanpur and how the Kanpur ecosystem, which is also thriving and grown up, and that's a very much more complex and difficult challenge. And then I'll go to Kavita and then to Subramani. Ashish.
Thank you, Professor Vijay Raghavan. I think you've raised some very pertinent points about why this industry-based R&D has sort of it got delayed in India. And institutions like IIT Madras, when they started this research park, they have really catalyzed the process of translation of basic research into technologies and their commercialization. So I'll just talk about first IIT Kanpur. So IIT Kanpur also has a research park, but before the research park, IIT Kanpur started with a incubation center. It is called as Startup Incubation. It is called as Startup Incubation Innovation Center. Early, it was funded by SEDB and started in late 90, I think around 2000. This is one of the very successful incubation centers in India. It has generated a large number of startups whose valuation is pretty good now. What this incubation center, of course, when it got started in 2000, there were many detractors. People were not very convinced whether this will be successful. But what it really did was, with the support of certain faculty members who were very enthusiastic about it, with the support from organizations like SEDB as well as government, there is a culture of innovation that got deeply rooted in the institute like IIT Kanpur. And I'm sure it's the same with other IITs also. But the process of incubation and innovation doesn't happen automatically. It has to be constantly hammered upon. And what this did was, this allowed students to get exposed to various people who came from industry, people who were converting their ideas into startups. It also led to culture of filing patents. India had a very poor culture of filing patents. In fact, some of our inventions were patented by the West. But these, and of course, a lot of credit also goes to Professor Mashelkar, Dr. Mashelkar, who talked about need of patenting in India. So this kind of incubation centers have allowed students to take risks. So earlier, a lot of our PhD students, they will go for lecturerships and they will look for jobs in research labs and universities. Today, many of the PhD and master's students, not only they go for these options, they have a desire to start their own companies by translating their research into technologies. However, one important thing that needs to be done, probably in all the institutes, the culture of innovation we should learn from a nation like Israel. Israel has a very high startup success rate there. And this culture lies in training of youngsters right from the beginning. So institutions like IIT Kanpur, IIT Madras, and many other institutions in India, they should set up the training modules for undergraduates, for postgraduates, right from the beginning, so that when they start their educational journey, their research careers, they always understand what is the process of incubation and entrepreneurship. It's not an easy process. There are a lot of failures. You start from TRL, low TRLs to high TRLs. There is a value of death in between. So it's extremely complex process. How do you raise the funds? How do you manage the funds? I mean, I had a startup in 2008 which failed mainly because we didn't know how to manage the funds. And that was a big learning for us. How to manage, how to scale up the technology, and then how to create a business plan. Not only you have to have a business plan, you also have to have an exit strategy. So these things need to be emphasized and taught to the students. And entities like IIT Madras Research Park, IIT Kanpur Incubation Center, and several other places, they must imbibe these skills right from the beginning in the minds of the students. That will help us further strengthen this entrepreneurial spirit and ability to work with the industry in a more concrete manner. And this is especially relevant for areas like emerging areas which are very vital for country. For example, healthcare. Healthcare is a vital part of healthcare is dependent upon engineering. So often we have a tendency to divide health and engineering into separate compartments, but no, it is engineering innovations which have made the healthcare far more impactful. So how do you integrate and create low-cost diagnostics for a country like India? Use of AI/ML, imaging. These are some, there are a lot of opportunities in energy space. Solar, wind, hydrogen, smart grids, microgrids. There are a lot of opportunities to translate basic research into technologies. And they don't necessarily have to be big companies. You can have one small idea and convert that into a big, successful, thriving product. And places like UP, Bihar, whole of northern India, which has a very large population, is hungry for these innovations and technologies. And it is people like you who can fill this. I mean, it's a very big cake. So of course there are all people in the market already, but a lot of cake is still empty. I mean, it needs people like you to eat it up. So there are a lot of opportunities in these areas, and I'm sure these centers will help young people like you to take the commercialization, working with industry, these things further. Thanks.
Very much, Ashish. I'll come back to you in a bit about 2 points. One is, how does, as a an academic in an IIT, an engineering institution, how does one deal with issues of IP and licensing institutionally as well as individually? And the second aspect you very nicely mentioned is about products which people are hungry for, either to make their lives more efficient or for sustainable growth or for energy requirements, and how that can scale up in the environment such as UP, Bihar, and so on and so forth. I'll come to that. But now let's go on to Kavita Saram. Kavita, as she mentioned, is an entrepreneur. She studied at IIT Madras. She started a major effort in organic agriculture, and amidst all odds, she's pushed that to success. She developed IP when she was a student, and she's now licensed that IP to her company, and she's grown. So more from Kavita.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the introduction. So one thing that I would like to mention, like there were a lot of points that the sir covered, but one thing is the alumni network. So I think IIT Madras has one more aspect that we have to see it as a very strong alumni network, which is always so surprising. I think most of them would accept what I'm saying. So the strong alumni network and trying to give back to the institute has helped in a lot of ways for IIT Madras. As a case study, as an example, I could take, when I started my idea, I would rather say as an innovation or as a project, when I wanted to develop lightweight carriers for agri inputs. That's where we started. The first funding came from one of our alumni. He was my angel. It came from Mr. Sri Kumar Suryanarayanan. He also had a startup from Bangalore, so must be aware of him very well. So the first funding actually came from him. So this network actually helps us. The initial, when you have to work on the idea, it's very tough to look for funds at that time. And BIRAC was too early at that time. BIRAC just started its funding system with the big and other things for most of them who are in biotechnology. So initial days, we didn't have much to think about the funding because we had this alumni fund which was supporting us. That is one aspect I want to say, that the network did help IIT Madras in a big way. And I was one of the beneficiaries of that. The first provisional patent was filed through that funding, even when I was a postdoc there, and my co-founder was still a PhD student there. Post that, we actually licensed this technology to the venture we started, which was Fipsol Life Technologies. Of course, like what again sir mentioned, there's a value of death, which of course our technology also had to face. So from TRL 6, we actually could not take it to TRL 9, basically because of the cost that was involved in scaling up the technology. So the technology was good. We also had another important aspect of the ecosystem that helped us, industry partnerships. So IIT Madras Research Park gives you a lot of exposure to industries. So I would rather see this as a tripartite arrangement where you have the industry, you have the startups, and you have the academic institute. So we had the support in technology from the academic institute, which is IIT Madras, and we also had the IIT Madras Research Park and the IIT Madras Incubation Cell connecting us to industrial partners. So this is where you have two validations done. One is the validation at the technical level, like whether, because most of us are hardcore technologists, as you can see. So whether the technology that we are thinking is really a technology, which could be converted into a product. So you need validation. So for that validation, you need both academia as well as the industry validation, which Fipsol had a chance to have. So we were validated by the stalwarts in the agri industry for the technology, which was true. But when we came to scaling up, that is when we faced the Death Valley. And that was not at all possible. But the other thing, so here I want to add this aspect of being entrepreneurial. So entrepreneurial being entrepreneurial is a mindset. So it naturally comes to everybody. It has to naturally come to everybody, whether you're a faculty, whether you work for the industry, or whether you work for research park, or you run a family, whatever it is, being entrepreneurial is actually thinking things differently. So we had to quickly pivot, and we had to come up with another technology which was a beta product of the current version, again which was funded by ICAR, apart from DBT BIRAC. So we have a lot of funding ecosystem that came to our support. We developed the technology, patented that in the venture itself. And now we have a commercial partner, and we are currently commercializing that technology. So the alumni network, being entrepreneurial and able to actually validate your technology, both in the business as well as the technical validation, it comes through the network that the incubation centers provide. So I think these are the points that I would like to mention. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kavita. Kavita has also brought samples of products which our company is doing, and we will take a look at that a little later. But over to Allur Subramani. Nissan and a few other multinationals were amongst the first to occupy parts of the IIT Madras Research Park. So it's a very unusual situation. Why should big companies who have unlimited funds, as it were, at least in public perception,
Agree.
Why should they go and embark on this kind of an adventure? And they did that some years ago, but have you benefited from that? Is that of value? Would you encourage other companies to do that? So over to you.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you, Professor. Sort of very interesting question, and this is something that I have been doing in the last 20 years. So firstly, yes, why a multinational company like Renault Nissan need to be in the research park? If I have to give a one-word answer, it's basically the cross-pollination of the knowledge, right? So just going back to the history like 15, 16 years back, our goal was to build an advanced materials lab, especially looking at fuel cell research and lithium-ion battery research, right? So I came back from Japan and I traveled across India, and I could easily count the number of professors, who were really working on such technologies, right? And we also could not really hire the engineers who had hands-on experience working at cell and system level, right? It's not just making materials, but we wanted to have people who can make cells and systems. So this is where we thought, why don't we start the first step? We knew that it's going to be tough, and we knew that if it's I'm going to put this lab, let's say in my corporate R&D center or in my manufacturing plant, you don't attract talents and you don't have, let's say, the faculties with whom we can discuss. So this is where we decided to be in the IIT Madras Research Park. So again, getting into the research park, it was a great experience for us. And I was just saying in the morning, we were the first corporate R&D to start operations in the research park. That means I remember some of my colleagues and myself going into the building with the helmets, to set up our facility because building was still under construction, right? So we had to face odds, right? But end of the day, for corporate, timeline is very important. When we say we will do it, we want to do it, right? So that's where initial days we said, yes, we will go and do this in research park. And eventually it helped us because initially we had a great collaboration with some of the professors in IIT Madras. Again, not starting from the angle of commercialization or making money from it, but our intention was to build the knowledge culture there, right? Because we really want to start from there. And we had a series of projects with IIT Madras being in the research park, and that really helped us to take the first steps. And then we could also hire some of the great engineers, not just from IIT, of course, across India in other universities. And also, we come from Nissan or Renault, where globally at our corporate R&D centers, we had a very strong team and great sort of global scale facilities. So initially, we hired smart engineers, researchers. We also have a couple of PhDs with us, be it electrochemistry or physics, and we sent them to Japan or France to learn. Right from that way, our initial days of journey was more building the team, building the organization. But again, we had to start there because we had no other go. And then now we have come a long way, And from this lab, at least I'm so proud to say that we have produced a lot of great researchers and engineers who are corporate ready. And some of our colleagues today, they don't work with us, but they have moved on, and they are working in some of the great companies in India, and they lead the developments. That means it's also one of our responsibility to build this kind of talent pool for the country, right? So, and then for the corporate, what do we do is today, this facility in Research Park, we are part of the global R&D team. And I have to say this because what we do here is not for India market, it is more for the global market. And when we say research, I can't agree or say that research can be India specific, right? It has to be universal. So the problem statements, what we do here is more universal. The targets are really unbelievable. It's all like, game-changing kind of technologies or materials that we want to look at, right? So that means, in a way, from a technology point of view, we don't look at a linear, technology growth. We want to really look at game-changing technology. This is the corporate R&D, and that is where having our presence in Research Park really helped us, because we had faculty members who could understand what we are saying. So this is a kind of very high level, probably we could discuss later in detail, but this is something that really moved us to be in the Research Park, and so far it has been a great journey. Yeah.
Terrific. Yeah, I'll just come to you with one point from Ashish. Ashish, as a professor in an institution, if you want to start a company, what does that mean? Are you the CEO? Are you the chair of the Science Advisory Council? Are you the member of the board? What's your involvement as a professor in raising resources, involvement in the company, and so on and so forth? So could you run us through the mechanisms very briefly, and then we'll take questions.
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Professor Vijayaraghavan. So there are multiple roles one can take as a professor in these incubated companies. Most of the IITs or other institutions, they have faculty entrepreneurship policy now. Faculty can take a role of a mentor. Faculty can be a CEO. Faculty can also be a CTO, Chief Technology Officer. So there are different roles faculty can take, and depending upon the arrangement with the students and postdocs and other faculty members involved in that process, these can be worked out easily. However, and most IITs now also have, at least I know about IITs, that they have liberal mechanisms for providing leave. So let us say you see your company graduating to a certain level and doing well, then you can take 1 or 2 years of paid leave. Not only students, not only faculty members have the option of taking leave. This could be unpaid leave for 1 or 2 years. Students also get credits for entrepreneurship. So students who work in your company, they can get credits in their mark sheet for the amount of time they spend in your company. So there are multiple ways, and I think most of the institutions, at least I know about IITs, they have made it very conducive for faculty members to develop these startups in different ways. So yeah.
Thank you very much. You had a question?
Thanks to the panel for the really thought-provoking discussion. Myself, Aparna Joshi from IISER Pune. Sorry for my sore throat. In this whole discussion, it's really exciting to know how industry-academia collaboration is getting spearheaded by IITs and IISERs. And Vijay, in many of your sessions as PSA, you also have highlighted the importance of growth of industry-academia collaboration all over the country. My question is targeted towards the students who are not part of IITs or IISERs or premier government academic institutions. As 90+% of students lie not in IITs but other institutions in India, how IITs who are spearheading this overall industry-academia collaboration, how they are guiding the non-IIT or non-IISER students spread across the country who are willing to become entrepreneurs, who would like to test something, not only students but also faculties in non-IIT and non-IISER institutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Aparna, you said it. Yeah. Thank you very much. See, this is a critical and important point. So what I did actually with some colleagues at FAST was to put on a map of India our research institutions of the CSIR, DRDO, DAE, ICMR, ICAR, all the IITs, all the central universities, all the ISERs. If you look at this map of India, it is just jam-packed. But there are some gaps everywhere. And now, if you put in on that map state universities, it gets even more packed. And if you put colleges there, there's no space left. So we are in a strange situation. We have what I call a salt and pepper situation. We have the pepper of excellent institutions amidst the salt of the rest of the country. And no matter how much water you put, the pepper doesn't dissolve and connect with this broader ecosystem. All our top institutions are what I call, by and large, a short walk from India. Doing wonderful things, but disconnected. It is that kind of connect which is critical now, and therefore I was excited by what Ashish said about making products which interact for the ecosystem. Now, the dilemma for industry side and growth side is you need a market. And the existence of a problem or the existence of an opportunity of quality students doesn't solve the market issue. The market issue typically for science and technology lies both in an elite group here and globally. The demand for solutions and the demand for connect lies broadly. Now, how does one solve that? Now, it's going to be tough in many areas, but there's some areas where there's an extraordinary opportunity. And that opportunity comes because of a digital opportunity as well as design opportunity. Today's world, design, whether it is chip design or product design or design of in biology and biotechnology, it's absolutely critical. For that design to be effective, you need connectivity and access, but you also need extraordinary high quality training and ambition. That training and ambition, many people talk about to try and reform our entire ecosystem. That's necessary. That will take a long time. But opening up the access to information to every citizen, right? Making sure that every top journal is accessible to everyone, right? In this information age, in this digital age that's feasible, that allows people from Ferguson College to be ambitious, develop things, talk to ISER, and then go and do stuff, not only Ferguson, but some of the colleges in the rest of Maharashtra. So the stimulation of possibilities through digital structures and learning, bottom-up driven, to my mind, will be a tsunami in the next 5 to 10 years because of the way the tools of AI and digital access are changing. So I'm optimistic about a bottom-up approach, but I'm not so optimistic about formal top-down mechanisms of do this, do that, connected. Those are necessary, but they depend on the Junjunwalas of the world or, Keshavan funding a sustainable center. Those are much slower but important processes. But anyone else wants to have comment on that?
So just to add on to what Sir said, if you had seen the IIT Madras case study, out of the 5 to 6 startups that case study was done, I think you would understand that. So 2 of them are founded by IITM alumni. All the remaining startups are from non-IITians. So it doesn't mean that the IIT Madras Research Park or any incubation cell is actually supporting the IIT Madras graduates or something like that. That is one point I want to add. Out of the 180 non-faculty startups in IIT Madras Research Park, more than 60% is founded by the students who are not IITians. And they've been very successful compared to the startups which are founded by the IIT. I mean, just to give you a since you had this concern. And the professor, I have known him personally for some time. So Junjunwala sir has been promoting, wherever he sees this idea, when the idea is good, he tries to nurture the idea and train them. The training, what Professor Vijayaraghavan rightly mentioned, the ecosystem sees to that has happened. So once you enter, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just want to reinforce the same point. Similarly, at IIT Kanpur, a large number of startup companies are not from IIT Kanpur students or faculty members. They are from all sorts of people. I'll give you one example. There is a company called as Fool. This company, Kanpur has a lot of temples, and in temples there are a lot of flowers. And these flowers are all wasted. So this company, Fool, it converted the waste flowers into leather, called as fleather. And it's making all sorts of products, including wallets, belts, etc. And this company is now, I think it's about 2,000 crore company. It's being supported by people like Alia Bhatt, and they have made big investments in that company. And these people are not IIT Kanpur people. Similarly, there are a lot of companies which have come up in waste management. These are people from remote parts of UP who have developed a solution for waste management. They wanted a platform. So of course, IIT Kanpur takes a royalty of 2 or 3%, I think. But many companies have been incubated at IIT Kanpur, at IIT Madras, and many other places, which are not from IIT Kanpur alumni. So there are mechanisms of training. There are mechanisms of mentoring and helping them. There is a strong alumni network of IIT alumni which acts as a source of funding as well as mentoring for many of these companies. And they're happy to do that. I mean, I know one alumnus, Mr. Saurabh Srivastava. He funds a lot of companies, and many of these companies are not from IITians. They are from many other people in the country. So I think it's happening.
Yeah, maybe I'll just comment. Just want to extend this discussion. The question is valid. And I kind of agree that, in one line, we need to do more, right? And as a corporate R&D center, we really don't mind from where the idea is coming, be it IIT or non-IIT, as most of the panelists said. And to, again, what we have done in the last 3-4 years is we run something called Open Innovation Challenges, which is open for anyone, right? Not just IITs. And this is managed by our T-Hub, which is, again, an incubator. And we sort of, ask for nominations in the themes that we define, and we screen the ideas and we fund them, right? So there are opportunities like this, but again, if you ask me, is this enough? Probably not. We need to do more. And another one is, again, I kind of interact with the students. I travel across universities. Primary purpose of their, going to the university is to get the job, right? How do we change that mindset? This is something I don't have a one-liner answer here. But in India, let's say my parents, you have to study, you have to get a job, right? So today, probably that's not the case. The young mind is different. They want to challenge, right? As parents, as adults, we need to encourage them to take risk. And it's okay if they fail. 2-3 years, probably they will end up in some job, but that's okay. But we need to give them that breathing space to challenge something and, really do that innovation. And if the innovation or idea is good, absolutely there is a way out to take it forward. I don't think that's a problem. Sorry.
Hello. Yeah, my question is, I think there's tremendous work which has been done, which has been put up. But based on data and various studies which I have seen, the failure rate of startups is as high as 90%. This is something exceptional in terms of 80% survival rate after 3 years. This is absolutely outstanding. I mean, it completely defeats all whatever research I have done and studied. That's point number one. The second point, I think, which is important for various youngsters in this room also, is that everybody looks at a business with the prime objective of making money. And that's not the case. Yes, it's important because you're not doing things for fun, but I think you have to look at the larger picture. Keeping the IP, keeping the ethics, keeping the process, keeping the whole journey, keeping people motivated, innovated is all fine. But at the end of the day, look at the larger picture. What am I doing this business for? Am I doing it for myself or am I doing it for a greater good? You're going to want to walk this world only once, okay? What difference are you going to make? Are you going to build trees which are going to give shade to future generations, or are you just going to build that tree in terms of taking care of yourself? I think this is the question the youth have to ask. Many people build trees. The Einsteins, the Steve Jobs, they build trees for us today, which we are benefiting by using our cell phones. What trees are these youth of today going to build for the future generations, not for themselves, but for others? I think this is an issue which you have to look beyond money. Don't go by the West. Please They are not the best role models to follow. I think I'd just like to leave you with that.
Thank you. That's a very valuable comment. I should add that there's a huge churn of two kinds of entrepreneurship now. One, a formal version, and for example, if you look up social alpha, that's one, which drives the generation and gets support for companies which deal with environment, sustainability, and so on. And the Fool company, which Ashish mentioned, is also supported by Social Alpha and others. That's a big movement. The second point is that actually, if you look at first generation entrepreneurs, we had Swapnil Jain from Aether yesterday. They're motivated not by, making business successes. If the best business success is to start a coaching class for students to join IITs. So this is not that kind of, these are not that kind of people. So they are motivated by a passion to try and do the impossible with a relatively important social, economic, sustainable goal. Today, for example, I saw that there's a person who's jumped up into take cutting edge technology. Nuclear fusion is now becoming smaller and potentially more feasible. And there's an Indian who wants to start a nuclear fusion company in India for sustainable energy. So there are these things happening. And the last category are people who are successful in whatever they do and then support various institutions. Varun Agarwal, for example, made his money by telling companies how they can assess people, but he and Ashish Dhawan and others are entirely supporting FAST. So, there are lots of positive examples in this very difficult world. Any other questions? Yeah, please.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Raj Singh Rajawat, and I am a student, independent educator, and a researcher.
What does your sweatshirt say? What's written there?
The earth without art is just air.
Okay.
So you just remove art from earth. Yeah. So my question is, a lot of talks has been done about technology and how industry academic collaboration is working. But there's one course that Stanford and Harvard has been doing for last 20, 30 years, from 1980s, 1990s. It's called Learning, Design, and Technology. So it is on us. My question is on a different roads from what the discussion has been about. But this industry academia collaboration in IIT Madras Research Park, could it be another possibility to spearhead such courses in India as well? Because I have been an educator and a researcher, a design researcher. So this part of designing in curriculum and how you design curriculum that teaches you technology is something that's been missing because when I wrote learning, design, and technology course in India, what it showed was a PDF from 2016 from one of the IITs, and it was not updated after that, and the course information was also not available on the internet. So could this be another possibility that IIT Madras Research Park could take? Thank you.
So to my understanding, there are design courses and departments in many of our engineering institutions, including IIT Kanpur has got a really terrific one, IIT Madras, I'm not sure, Indian Institute of Science has got one, and other institutions have that. For example, another program which was started as an IIT Delhi All India Institute collaboration was originally what was called the Stanford India Biodesign Program, and now it's run independently, it's called the Biodesign Program. So there are huge such programs, and these are very, very attractive, and they result in actually the best people going out into design programs in companies, but also starting their own businesses and so on. The importance of design in technology and science and its, implementation cannot be underestimated. I was on a call with Bhaskar Ramurthy once, former director of IIT Madras, and he pointed out, if you take the AirPod, right, the Apple AirPod or whatever else, it's not the technology of what goes in which is impressive. Those are all relatively standard technologies. the way it is packed into such a small device which can stick in your ear is an extraordinary success of design and dealing with the electronics in that context. So, I mean, everyone appreciates the value of design. Though, I mean, as Subramani said, parents may not think that design will get you a job, but design actually gets you some of the best jobs. Yeah, one at the back.
We'll just take one more last question.
Good
There are
morning.
two last questions there. Can we? Yeah, okay, good.
Good morning, sir. My name is Swapnil. I am working on a project of central government, TAPRISE, and we are into rural innovations. So, what concern I have found while working on the project is focus of industry academia collaboration is mostly on technology that is related to urban sector or a structured sector that we have. But rural innovations, there are so many ideas lying which are untapped. And academia usually gives less priority to them and they remain untapped. So is there anything that we can do, or what are your views on this? As a panel, I would like to know from all.
Yeah, Ashish?
So that's a very good question, and I think it remained unanswered for several decades in this country. The rural population of our country is very hungry for solutions which can alter their lives. There used to be a program, and there is still a program called as RUTAG, funded by the Government of India, which runs in many institutes across the country. It has supported many research projects wherein faculty members and students at IITs and NITs and several other institutions, they have worked with farmers and many other people at the rural level. I'll give you one example. One of my colleagues at IITK, he developed a solution for fruit and vegetable drying. So normally fruit and vegetable drying was done using electricity, which is derived from coal and diesel. Diesel because electricity isn't available to all the villages 24 hours, so they use generators. So we developed a solar thermal powered solar dryer, and we modified. So it's a very simple innovation, but it's a very complex innovation in physics, because you have to optimize the rate at which it's heated, the rate at which things pass through, the size of the orifice, and things like that. And I have to tell you, there is a district called as Pratapgarh in UP. So in Pratapgarh, Amla, the gooseberry, it's one of the very, widespread products there. And Amla season is very short season, and there is a lot of Amla which gets produced in a very short span. So it all gets wasted, so it has to be dried and kept for different uses. And this machine got adopted by different villagers in Pratapgarh district. So there are examples wherein innovations have been carried out in partnership with farmers or other sections of society. But I do agree that there is a need to place higher emphasis on this. And it's not only a question of IITs, it's also about NITs and other institutions taking part in this process. CSIR was supposed to do a lot of this, and I think some of the CSIR labs have done a fabulous job in this. But I think this, to some extent, can also be overcome by resurrecting our polytechnics and ITIs. See, our polytechnics and ITI used to be very good in past. Today, they have become defunct. And this has created a vacuum at that level where such innovations can be, which may not require quantum mechanics, but they require some engineering to create solutions. So I think if we inculcate that culture of innovation, of rural innovations in polytechnics and engineering colleges and ITIs, and make them come up to certain level, this can further be bolstered.
One quick last question.
Yeah.
If you can provide the answer also, that will be good.
Sure. So I represent industry. I am a CTO in a company. So if I want to do research, if I want to collaborate with, say, IIT Madras or IIT Kanpur incubation cell sitting in Pune, because my office and my operations are in Pune, how it is possible?
What is the kind of company you have?
So we work in GIS, geospatial domain, and its application to various industries. I worked in CAD, CFD earlier. So that's the thing. My second question I'll quickly ask. You talked about the incubation guidance, etc. Through Swayam, can there be some more appropriate courses available for the people sitting in rural India who can actually get trained through that, at least at the basic level, and take it forward?
So the last part is easy. There are lots of such courses available. The problem is dissemination and knowing what to do and what not to do. More about what courses not to do than what to do. Now the first part, there are extraordinary institutions in computational fluid dynamics and the kinds of areas you're interested all over India. So if you want to tap into the intellectual capabilities in these institutions, that's
not my interest. My interest is, say, I want to start a company in this. I have some research ideas.
in computational fluid dynamics.
Or in GIS, geospatial, and its application, say, to agriculture.
Right.
But I am in Pune. I can't go to Madras, or I cannot go to Kanpur. I have to run it from here. Is it possible? That's what my
Mohammed will not go to the mountain will come to Mohammed. Don't worry. So there are ways by which this can be done. But you need to reach out and see what the possibilities are. And there are organizations in Pune as well as in Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai. So I don't see this as a problem in any way.
Okay.
Just share my experience. I think this is pretty much, you need to go where you have to, find the talent or the requirement, because just, I think it's kind of 10 years back, we wanted to work on lithium-ion battery recycling, and we went up to Jamshedpur, right? And for me, first time I went to Jamshedpur, I took a cab from Kolkata to Jamshedpur, unaware of, going by cab. It was a strange experience, but we really could go there, and we had a beautiful project with them. So nothing stops you. If you really find somebody who's expert there, or if it is matching, the frequency is matching, they understand what you're talking about, just go ahead and do it. It never stopped us go around India, right? Yeah, thank you.
You can get virtually incubated.
So on that happy note, thank you very, very much, everybody, and thanks to all the panelists. Thank you.
Can I request Mr. Sheel Kapoor, CEO Fast India, to just give the closing comments for the session?
Good morning, everybody. I just want to thank the panel for a very engrossing session. Thank you all for being on the dais here. Clearly, there's a lot which is happening in India today on the research and development front, and IIT Madras Research Park as a case study stands out, and we thought we'll bring it out in the open. Few key things that came in our discussion today. 80% survival rate for any startups. It's a number to remember, and you rightly mentioned it's a unique number that stands out. It shows the quality of the nurturing which is happening in the campus. It doesn't happen without nurturing. Few other things that stand out is the startup mentality that the students have got, right? That entrepreneurial approach is something which is being encouraged. And it's a learning for all of us on how do we encourage innovation and entrepreneurship right from the very beginning. That's what sets China as a country and set up the ecosystem. I mean, it's every street has some innovation going on in China. That's the flywheel effect that is now in place in China. It starts from early schooling. It starts into the education system. It starts from campuses like IIT Madras Research Park, which becomes a mother institution to house innovation and nurture that kind of innovation happening. So that's something to learn, that how do we have the right people in an organization to nurture innovation, and how do the students get into entrepreneurial mindsets. Faculty as shareholders, that's innovation as well within the educational system, getting the faculty to actually have a stake in the organization, right? That's unique. That was probably a path-breaking effort and an idea in the very beginning. And I just want to thank the IIT Madras team for supporting this case study, the Renault Nissan team, and all the people on the dais for the individual contributions that has been made in making this such a successful case study. What's the way forward? The way forward, if you see the case study, when you go back, please have a look at the case study and read it very carefully. It talks about a few pages at the end. It talks about what they call as the way forward, the 10x program. The plan is to have in the next 10 years many such institutes across India. The first one, we are talking about IIT Madras Research Park, but there are 9 other institutes, and thanks to Sir for having supported a lot of this effort in his earlier roles. We have 9 other research parks which are being set up now across India. We need hundreds. Imagine if we have 100 such research parks with 100 Ashok Jhunjhunwalas, right? And that kind of entrepreneurial approach and innovation happening. Do we think that we will bridge the gap with China or not? Absolutely. And do you think that we'll get forward? I think we'll take giant strides. So we should target 100 such organizations, and the next 10 years is all about innovation. So that's the 10X program. A few lines from the case study where somebody has asked a question to Bhaskar Ramamurthy, Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy, that can this be replicated across India? And he says, exact replication is not possible everywhere. What matters is the ease with which people can get together and build something. That means institutions need to enable entrepreneurship, even in faculty. Just throwing money and building fancy infrastructure is the biggest mistake one can make. Conscious nurturing of faculty, youth, and industry will show results. And that's exactly what we are proposing here as well, that let's go for 9 research parks, creating similar impact, and think of not 9, but 100 such eventually. Thank you. Thanks all for coming. Thank you, sir.
We will now be moving from Chennai, India to Australia with Alex Toot, who will be talking about how Australia is powering industries with science. So we'll be starting in about 2 minutes. Thank you.